This could cost me followers, and if it does, I'm okay because I know I've lost the right ones. In 2024, if you don't understand that white privilege doesn't equal financial privilege, there's a good chance it's because you choose to be willfully ignorant. White privilege doesn't mean that you grew up rich or that you didn't have a hard life. It's the concept that by the mere coincidence of you being born white or white presenting, that you have an inherent privilege. You're afforded certain benefits of the doubt that not everyone gets. It's the difference from a white person walking into a store and a customer salesperson walking up and saying, "Hi, can we help you find something today?" To a black person walking in that same store with that same customer service person following them around because they looked kind of suspicious. It's the black family that can't leave their family photos hanging on the wall when they're selling their house because the home appraiser might undervalue their house by as much as $500,000. And for fuck's sakes, you've never had to apologize for being white. Had your parents fucked on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday, you wouldn't even be you. Rather, just acknowledge that the system that was designed by and for people that look like you has never been a level playing field. I hope this made it clear. Have a great fucking weekend.
A story of white privilege from a white Republican woman. Oh, this is about to piss a lot of you off. I see a lot of my friends in the comments talking about how white privilege doesn't exist. But it does. And I can speak on it firsthand. And the reason is I had a black child in my home. Quick story time. My son's best friend, both of his parents were incarcerated. He was a mixed child, white mother, black dad. The parents of the mother, one was a cop, one was a physician, did not want to take him. He was at risk for going into the system, into foster care. And so my, at the time, husband, not my current husband, we filed for a temporary, not custody, but it was like a temporary guardianship. So he could ride the bus from our house, we could call the school, make changes to his schedule, and so on. This child was, at glance, black. He did not look Caucasian at all, even though he was half Caucasian. He attended school with my son, and once he was in my home, I noticed very, very quickly how differently he was treated. Not just by the teachers and the administrators at the school, but also by the police in our town. Yes, I live in a town that is primarily white. A lot of things that I never would have believed occurred and happened to people happened to this young man, and it was a stark contrast. Now, I know from firsthand experience, I've had a lot of different kinds of experiences being in the Marines, and a very diverse culture in the Marines, all walks of life, all skin colors. Just I've been a lot of places, in a lot of spaces, seen a lot of people, been around a lot of races, and I never believed in white privilege. I thought your experience in the world is what you make of it. And for the most part, I do believe that is true. However, two things can be true at once. I do believe that we create our world and our experiences, but I do believe that there's merit to white privilege. And I think that the experience that I have is not always the same as a person that is melanated has, especially young people, because they're not as in control of their environment and the conversations and the way that those conversations go and so on. They're vulnerable. And adults, I believe, took advantage of situations, in the case with this young man that I was caring for, because he was brown. Things that were said to him that happened, that I know for a fact happened to him, that would have never happened to my son, that never happened to my son. So I want you to remember something. When you say boldly on the internet that white privilege doesn't exist, I want you to remember the middle-aged Republican white lady telling you it does. It does. It does exist. It is very much a thing.
When some people hear about white privilege, they always think immediately that this is an insult, and yet it's not an insult. Right now, majority of the palm-colored people, especially from the United States, are coming out and admitting the fact that they are more privileged than any other group of people in the United States, and that white supremacy has always been there it is something which is still there, and they're trying so hard to deconstruct themselves from it. They're trying to deconstruct themselves from racism, misogyny, bigotry, sexism, like name them, because they came to realize that staying silent will just help to maintain the status quo. That is why all of a sudden you've been seeing and watching a lot of the palm colored people coming out and using their voices, calling out whatever is happening in their community, because they came to realize that these things are no longer benefiting them the way they thought earlier that it's going to benefit them. So, guys, welcome back to Afrojudy's channel. In today's episode, I came across the clip of a palm colored woman from the United States calling out whatever is happening within her own community, especially the white privilege and white supremacy. So I want us to watch these clips together and let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Kindly give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe if you are coming across Afrojudy's channel for the very first time.
Okay, white people, let's talk about it again. Let's keep talking about white supremacy and accountability. The reason why I want to have conversations with white people about white supremacy is not because I want people to carry this massive load of white guilt or because I think every single white person alive is racist. I don't think that. I want to have these conversations because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I truly believe that it's our responsibility as white people who hold the privilege to dismantle the systems that we benefit from that harm others. So I made a video the other day talking about taking accountability as white people for our own history of violence and confronting ourselves and confronting the systems that we built that exist in this country today that have vastly different health outcomes and behavioral outcomes for different people. And pretty predictably, a lot of the responses that I got from white people were avoidant, dismissive, in denial, and pretty much unwilling to confront the reality of how our country operates and how that impacts people who are not white, straight people. I had a lot of people saying, well, I didn't build it and I treat everybody the way that I would want to be treated, so it's not on me. And why do all of us white people have to be ashamed of being white? And color doesn't matter, and you are furthering a divide between races or just between different demographics of people that shouldn't exist by talking about this. And something that I learned actually from volunteering in prisons with incarcerated men and women is the concept of radical accountability. So accountability, I think is pretty obvious. Most people think accountability is taking responsibility for your own actions and how they impact other people, and acknowledging any wrongdoing that you've done and committing not to repeat those actions. But what I have observed and learned from the incarcerated men that I've volunteered with that are very, very committed to their paths of bettering themselves and contributing positively to the world is that radical accountability goes beyond just the individual and their own actions. It extends out to how they interact with their communities, what they want to offer their communities, and what they really want to contribute to the world that they want to help build. So the response that I heard about, well, it isn't me, when you shift your perspective, radical accountability is about looking at your surroundings, looking at your environment, looking at the community around you, and considering it partially your responsibility to uplift that community. Do I think one person can change the entire world completely on their own? No, but I think if a lot of us embraced the idea of radical accountability and looked out into our communities and decided to take on the perspective that our communities are our responsibility, and the health and happiness and stability of our communities is our responsibility, then I think our world would look a lot different than it does. So in speaking with white people, that is the point of confronting each other and ourselves about whiteness, about white supremacy, about white violence, because you just there's no way to deny it. It's undeniable that white supremacy exists and is alive and thriving in this country. Trey Reed was found hanging from a tree, and his case was immediately dismissed as suicide. Second autopsy, and we're hearing a very different story, which is completely unsurprising. ICE agents walking around, shoving people to the floor, separating families, brutalizing people, brown people, vast majority of the time, without repercussions, without consequences, without even having to show their faces or their names. So, white people, when we think about the culture of white supremacy, white violence, and the history of that and how it persists today, culturally, the fact that you just exist as a white person means that you are contributing to the culture of whiteness somehow. Just like every single person on planet Earth contributes to the culture that exists in their communities. Your existence contributes to some sort of dynamics that exist in this world. You could be contributing aggressive, intense racism, using slurs, degrading people, making people's lives hard, demonizing people. You could be contributing to that culture by engaging in it. You could be fighting hard with your activism against that culture and trying to use your voice for good, trying to donate your money, your time, your energy, picking up books and reading, listening to conversations with people that don't look like you, did not grow up like you, and have insight that is really important for you to learn. Or you could be in denial and just ignoring everything. You could be afraid and avoidant. You could live your life without going anywhere near this subject matter because that's more comfortable and that's easier. But that also is contributing to a culture and a dynamic. So no matter what you're choosing to do, no matter how you exist, you are contributing to the dynamics that exist in the world in one way or the other. And the question is, how do you want to contribute? Who do you want to be? Racism and bigotry isn't just about using slurs or dehumanizing people to their face. It's about the systems that exist in this country that make some people's lives better and that benefit some people, but harm others. So white people, it's important for us to talk about white supremacy and to educate ourselves about how the systems in our country operate and the outcomes that people face as a direct result of how these systems operate. Nothing changes if nothing changes, and I hope lots of people are having these conversations. I hear it sometimes, but I don't hear it enough, and I want to be somebody that engages in these conversations. I think it's so important now more than ever for us to be using our voices and to be finding ways to connect and communicate about how our country actually runs, the reality of life for people in this country, and how do we contribute to that, and what is our responsibility. And I think we all have a responsibility to each other to make this place safer, because if what everybody says that they want is safety, but your neighbor is constantly unsafe, you are not safe. Safety is about the stability of a community. It's about how we treat each other. It's about what we offer each other. It's about generosity. It's about humanizing each other. It's about seeing the needs that people have, the very real, intense needs that people have, and deciding that it is our responsibility to meet those needs, to get people on stable ground so that all of us can experience safety and stability. Nobody will ever be able to convince me that we are going to reach a state of harmony and safety and kindness and generosity and equality in this country if we don't take accountability, address each other, confront ourselves, and decide that all of us have a responsibility to create the world that we want to live in. It isn't productive to just continue blaming generations past for all of our issues and remaining in denial about what still exists today. So white people, let's keep talking about it. Love you.
So yesterday I posted a video giving a very basic definition in my own words of what white privilege is. And I kept it very brief and vague on purpose because I had a feeling people would start arguing in the comments, which they did. But I also thought it was super interesting how many people were commenting that I have white guilt, that I want to be black, and that I'm dying for the attention of the black community. First of all, yes, I have white guilt. You should too. Anyone who grows up with the knowledge that they have systematic advantages over other people just because of historical events and historical discrimination should feel a little guilty about that. Whether or not they contributed to that is a whole other thing, but you're reaping the benefits of it. People act like white guilt is something to be ashamed of, but if you use it in the right way and you use it to further reduce injustice, it's a good thing. And when people talk about systematic injustice and things like that, and they say, oh, everyone's equal, and this is happening in the comments, there's no racism anymore, everyone's equal, obviously don't understand what systematic means. And I'm going to give an anecdotal story just to really hit this on the head. I am white, and on both sides of my family, we do not have any massive generational wealth. My mom's father is the only one of my 4 grandparents who we got any sort of generational wealth inherited from. And 99% of the wealth that we inherited from my grandfather was from selling his house. My grandfather was born in 1926 in rural North Carolina, and he was a 6'3" white man with blue eyes. And other than being white, my grandfather didn't have that many privileges. He was one of like 7 children. His mom didn't even get to high school level education, and his dad never went to college. They were not privileged in most other ways that we define privilege, but he was a white male in a very, very racist country. What his whiteness allowed him to do was work his way through college. At the time, there were colleges that weren't accepting black people, and he was accepted to college as long as he could pay for it. And he ended up getting a law degree and becoming very successful. And again, never hoarded any significant wealth, but bought a house outside of Washington, D.C. in the 50s. In a neighborhood that was redlined. And actually, my mom, who was born in the 60s, remembers in the 70s when the first black family moved into their neighborhood, because it had literally been sectioned off and realtors would not sell to black families. And my mom, who is 58 years old, went to a year of segregated school. So for all of you saying, it was so long ago, everyone has equal rights now, get over it. My mom remembers when the first black student joined her class in the 70s in Alexandria, Virginia. In 2015, my grandfather died, and we sold his house that he bought for around $100,000 in the 50s, and we sold it for $1 million. That money was divided among his children, and my family was able to get out of a lot of debt, and it completely reset my ability to go to private versus public school, my ability to afford tutors, my ability to become the educated person that I am. And it was all really because I have a white grandfather. Let me finish. Had my grandfather been black and had all of the other skills and background that he had, he couldn't have gone to the schools that he went to. He wouldn't have been hired in the jobs that he was. And he couldn't have bought the house that he did, that, 65 years later, put his family out of debt. So if anyone tries to tell you it's not that deep, it really is that deep. It goes so far back. Any small privilege that a white person has is probably, to some degree, due to their whiteness. And if you are a white person who has roots in the South, you definitely should have white guilt, and you definitely should be doing the work to understand how your privilege affects the people around you and how you can help level the playing field. Because you, almost 100%, have an ancestor who owned black people. So yes, I have white guilt. Yes, I'm aware of my status as a white woman, and I'm aware of the parts of my identity that are privileged and the parts that aren't. But saying that you have a certain type of privilege doesn't mean that you have every privilege. It just means that that aspect of your identity is favored by society. So I can talk about being a white woman, and that makes me privileged. But if I talk about being a woman, that is actually a disadvantage in a lot of ways. And everyone tried to get all particular about these specific situations where a black person might have a privilege or a woman might have a privilege over a man. Those are isolated situations you're bringing up. We're talking about large-scale, mass, systematic issues. And it's a lot deeper than just, I felt racism as a white person at one point. Fine, yeah, all of us can experience what feels like discrimination based on race. But that doesn't mean that it's systematically affecting you and stopping you and your families from catching up. That's really what it is. Now, yeah, legally, black people and white people should have the same exact rights and privileges. but they're playing catch up. Because if my family, like I said, had been black, we would never have gotten out of debt in 2015. I would never have been able to afford the school that I went to and live the lifestyle that I'm living right now. And that's because of effects from over 70 years ago. So thanks for listening. And yeah, white guilt's okay.
All right, guys, welcome back. Some of the palm colored people, when they hear people talking about white privilege, what really comes into their mind is an insult, because they always know deep down that when people talk about white privilege, people always think that perhaps white people are making it easier as compared to any other group of people in the United States or some of the Western countries. But it's not that way. There are a lot of privileges that the palm colored people are literally enjoying as compared to any other group of people. Like, for instance, you are being able to move through most of the neighborhoods without being followed. Like, for instance, there is an incident which happened in the United States last year. It was around November, December in North Carolina. There is a teenager boy who was just walking in the neighborhood. Then some of the palm colored men started following him to an extent that one of these palm colored men pulled a pew pew. Then the video went so viral, and some of these palm colored men got fired off their jobs. These are some of the privileges that we are talking about. Like, you can't tell me that a palm colored person will be walking in the neighborhood and he or she will start being followed by a black person the way they are doing to some of the black people in the United States. Then again, if a black person or a brown person gets pulled over by a police, the way you will be treated is so different from the way a colored person will be treated. You've seen all these scenarios happening in the United States, and again, the charges might get lifted so fast if you're a palm colored person as compared to if you are a brown person or a black person. And again, if you watch the movies, if you watch the ads, or maybe political offices, you'll see a lot of palm colored people in these things. But if it was a black person, there is a way how he or she will be regarded, or maybe as being poor, or he just got that position in a wrong way. You understand? Those are some of the privileges these palm colored people are literally enjoying in the United States. And again, working in a store, or just maybe a school, a restaurant, church, without being stereotyped as a suspicious or as a poor person, the way black people are being stereotyped. Sometimes you go to the store, and the way you'll be treated there is not the same way a palm colored person will be treated. And the welcoming will be so much different. The way you'll be treated at the counter is so much different. I've been seeing these things on the social media. Then I came to ask myself, why is it that all of a sudden majority of the palm colored people right now are coming out online and start talking about all these things that are happening within their own community? Why is it that they were not talking about it earlier before? Then I just did my research and came to realize that, these are a younger generation, the Gen Zs, that are growing up in a diverse environment, and they want to challenge all those sports that their parents, their grandparents believed in that were true, and yet they were not true. And also, they are seeing the world as one world where people have the same problem. If you go to job, you have the same problem. If you're at home, you have the same problem. At school, like, these problems everyone is encountering. But the way other people are getting treated is not the same way the palm colored people are getting treated. Plus, the internet is teaching people a lot of things. During the time of our grandparents, the internet wasn't that much as it is nowadays. Then again, these palm colored people came to realize that their silence will help maintain the status quo and nothing will ever change. And that is the main reason as to why a majority of them, just from nowhere, started talking about deconstructing themselves from white supremacy, from racism, bigotry, and also admitting the fact that these things are there in their community, these things they are being taught to do every day. It's something which they were not born with. Then I also came across a certain comment here. I want to read it for you. So it was from a black woman. It was just her take on this. She said that this is my take, my honest opinion as a 54-year-old African American woman. Basically, racial bias is a belief. Racism is what happens when that belief translates into action. Like, for example, a person might be unconsciously or consciously believe that people of color are more likely to commit crime or to be dangerous, and that is a bias. A person might become anxious if they perceive a black person is angry. That stems from a bias. These biases can become racism. And white privilege is not the assumption that everything a white person has accomplished is unearned. Most white people who have reached a high level of success worked extremely hard to get there. Instead, white privilege should be viewed as a building advantage separate from one's level of income or effort. These are simple, everyday things, conveniences white people ain't forced to think about. In other words, they are more often humanized and granted the benefit of the doubt. They are more likely to receive compassion, to be granted individual potential to survive mistakes. This has negative effects for people of color who, without this privilege, face the consequences of racial profiling, the stereotypes, and lack of compassion for their struggles. White people are less likely to be followed, interrogated, or searched by law enforcement because they look suspicious. If white people are accused of a crime, they are less likely to be presumed guilty. White people are less likely to be followed in grocery stores. This privilege is invisible to many white people because it seems reasonable that a white person should be extended compassion and grace as they move through the world, and given the benefit of doubt, right? But its privilege often not granted to people of color with dire consequences. Just as people of color did nothing to deserve this unequal treatment, white people did not earn disproportionate access to compassion and fairness. They receive it as byproduct of systemic racism and bias, and even if they are not aware of it in their daily lives as they walk along the streets, white privilege carries power, the power to move through the world without your face defining your interaction. I think that was a nice comment and it explained everything. And let me just make this clear. If you just listen to that comment carefully, the way some of the palm colored people always come online and start saying that, people are saying that white people are making it so much easier. That is the main reason as why they are saying that we are so much privileged as compared to any other group of people. It is not true. These are some of the privileges that we are talking about that the palm colored people are enjoying as compared to any other group of people in the United States. So guys, let me know what you think about this in the comment section. I just want to know your thoughts about it. I really appreciate your massive love and support. We are here to learn, and also we learn from each other, and we are not here to spread any kind of hatred. Until next time, guys, I'm your presenter, Judy. Peace and love. Let's meet on my next episode.